Jennifer Stewart, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the Development Director for the IAFF. And among other things, including the new foundation and our charitable activities, my department back at IAFF headquarters works on grant development, grant questions, grant assistance with our IAFF locals. Over the past couple of years, we've had quite an increase in activity in our grants development division, particularly with the new SAFER grants and all of the new legislation and the rules and the guidance on those grants. So we've been making an effort to reach out wherever possible and assist our locals as they're putting their applications together, developing their budgets, working with their city government, their fire chief, their mayor's offices to put together applications for their staffing grants. Today we're very lucky to have two folks with us who have a lot of experience in the Fire Act process. Kathy Patterson, who's a branch chief for FEMA, who oversees the DHS's Department of Homeland Security Assistance to Fire Act grant office, which houses the fire prevention and safety grants. Underneath those, the research and development grants, also the AFG equipment grants, and of course the staffing grants, or SAFER, as they're more commonly known. And then we'll hear from Dennis Uhlberg, who is an IAFF member, and over the past couple of years he's been instrumental in helping us to reach out to our locals, assist them with their applications, and kind of offer a point of view from the reviewer perspective. Dennis sits on the FEMA panel reviews for us, representing the IAFF in that process. So you'll kind of get to hear his perspective on what he wants to see when those grants hit his table at the FEMA Fire Act process. So to get us started, I'd like to introduce Kathy Patterson, the branch chief for FEMA.
Thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, everybody. As Jen mentioned, my name is Kathy Patterson, and I've actually been with the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program since '02. I started the week before the '02 application period opened. Within the last year, I've been the branch chief in charge of all three programs. It's been a very interesting year. It's the 10th year of this program, so what we started to do is take a really hard look at what was working well within the program and what changes we needed to make in order to make this the best program possible for all applicants. So I wanted to go over today some of the key changes that we've made to the program and also an overview of the other applications that we house within our branch. We are behind on our timeline this year, mostly due to the continuing resolutions and a lack of budget up until about April. So since April, we've been standing up the program for AFG, and if you're not aware, that application period opened this past Monday, and it will be open until September 9th. So you have just a couple weeks to prepare that application. We have $404 million that was appropriated for that program, $404 million for SAFER, and out of the AFG 404 is $35 million allocated for fire prevention and safety. So some of the changes that we made, if you've had a chance to look at the new guidance so far, I would love to hear your feedback on it. But for the last 10 years, we've been doing workshops and trying to train folks on how to read our program guidance. It was just a cumbersome document that had a lot of text in it. So this year, we have changed all the text into graphs that show a high funding priority, a medium funding priority, and a lower funding priority. This is your key to understanding how your application is going to receive its pre-score. There's two scores. And your pre-score gets you into the panel review process. So we receive about 19,000 applications a year, and we're going to make 3,000 awards. So it's very, very competitive. I hope you get a chance to read it, and I really would like your feedback. If you've been an applicant in previous years, let me know how you like the new format. We also are making some changes to the application in terms of easing the burden of the narrative section. We find a lot of folks miss some of the evaluation criteria, so we want to make sure that it was crystal clear, not only how you're being evaluated, but walk you through that process of filling in those blanks. Also this year, we're going to talk a little bit more. I have a graph and chart on why this next change happened, but 50% of your score will be your pre-score, and 50% of your total score will be your narrative. We've also up here created some quick reference guides if you subscribe to our website, we also sent them out in advance of the guidance so that there's information that you can start preparing now while we're waiting for guidance approval coming down the pike. So these are your tools that we're building for you, and in terms of feedback, we really do need to know what works for you. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe, and let us know what other information we could have included in these quick ready guides. I've also added here at the front table what we're calling a self-evaluation tool. It was really designed for the web, however, we printed off some sheets for you to use. And that tool is for you to take and hand those evaluation sheets, which by the way is the same thing we give our panelists, little different format, but same information that they use to evaluate you. So take your narrative, take your application, take these self-evaluation tools, and have somebody read your application and rate you based on that criteria for feedback prior to submitting. We're also partnering this year with the National Fire Protection Association. If you read our guidance throughout, there's mentions of the different standards, and so NFPA has been kind enough to create a special website where you can look at the standards that are referenced within our program guidance. There is a link directly from the program guidance to this special page. One of the things that's new requirement within the federal government is a central contractor registration. We call it the CCR. If you are a current grantee, do we have current grantees in here? You must register. This is the reporting requirement. Honestly, when we implemented it within our system, it broke parts of our system. So if you see things that aren't working correctly in and around this SF425, call the help desk and they'll help you navigate around it while we wait for that system to fix deployment to happen. But it is essentially just asking you how much money you have spent on your current grant. So going back to the application scoring, this year one of the biggest changes that we've made is that in previous years, one application was rated in a whole. So you could ask for PPE and equipment and you got one score. This year, we felt it was really important to let each application carry its own weight. So if you apply for PPE, it will be rated. It will receive its own score. And if you apply for equipment, it will be rated and receive its own score. That way, the lower funding priorities or the lower scored items aren't carried through the panel process or carried through the award process with something that's rated higher. And again, 50% of your score will be from your pre-score. To give an example on how this would happen, this is an example of 3 separate projects. So you're going to, in this example, replace outdated SCBA, and the second project is purchasing equipment for radios, and the third one is a substation. So, a generator, sorry. So in this example, the cutoff is typically around 70-75 for pre-score. If you don't make that pre-score, then you're going to get an immediate turn-down notification. When we sort these applications prior to taking them to panels, that will help us determine which of your projects will be reviewed and which will not. This is one application, but in this particular example, Project 1 and Project 2 will be reviewed by panelists. Project 3 will not. So you will not be reviewed, that project will not be reviewed by panelists. And the way we'd notify you if this was a successful application is we send out emails from our grant specialists within the office to say, we're interested in awarding this project, but we're not going to give you the funding for Project 3. On that particular note, I know that there's a lot of folks that have received these emails from our grant specialists and received information about reductions to their grant. For example, if you applied for something for $500 and we send you an email and saying we're willing to offer you $400, you need to give a really hard thought about whether or not that reduction is too significant for you. We hear feedback where folks were nervous about coming back to us and saying, you know, arguing the point that that's not sufficient funding. But we need to hear that if it's not, because otherwise your project's not going to be successful. And we'd rather know now than 6 months into the project. So please don't be afraid to respond to those emails and saying, we just can't do it for that amount. It's not an all or nothing. So on this particular evaluation, the 91 was the prescore, 89 was for project 1 and 2, because we were only going to look at those two. The total score for the SCBA was 90 and the radios were 89. If the example was a little bit different and the SCBA was 90 and the radios on average were somewhere close to 75 or 80, we might then send that email to you and say, we're only going to fund the SCBA. One, we don't have to choose between all projects. We don't have all projects funded. We can choose between which ones would be funded. In the narrative section, project description, cost benefit, financial need, impact on daily operations are the areas that you will be evaluated. And in the narrative section, you'll have boxes specifically to address those questions. So it is a big change. It was a recommendation from our panelists that helped them read the narratives, but also help you, again, focus on what you're going to enter into that information. The narratives no longer have a separate link within the application. The information is in the request details. Those 4 boxes are in the request details area. Again, the areas that you're going to be evaluated is a project description, cost benefit. We have the sheets up here that I really encourage you to take with you, that it talks about the level of detail and the information that's looking for each one of these 4 areas. Wanted to spend a minute talking about the SAFER grant program. Again, we have $404 million. The SAFER grant program is specific to hiring firefighters or recruitment and retention of volunteers. We're literally talking boots on the ground with this program. The 11 program is under development. There have been a lot of changes in the 09 and 10 program. We were offered waivers to some of the requirements including supplanting of your local budget, which was in the original law. So the unfortunate reality is that the 09 and 10 waivers were not extended to the 11 program. We're currently working within the leadership of our agency, including Office of Management and Budget, and everybody that we possibly can to look at what the implications are of not having waivers to allow for some of the applications that we had in 9 and 10. 2 key issues is whether or not we'd be able to fund retention, meaning firefighters facing layoffs. And also there's information about a salary cap that was in the original law. So watch for information when we finalize the program guidance. Look for the Get Ready guides, because that'll come out first, and that will give you a heads up on what key changes we're going to have into that program. One of the interesting things about the recruitment and retention of volunteer firefighters is there's set aside funding in the hiring category that will move a volunteer station into being a career department. So literally, percentage of the funding goes to making combination departments. And recruitment and retention can do anything from stipends to paid on call or any other activities for. The narrative statement for SAFER is very much like what we just moved into with AFG, in that you will be asked the specific questions to formulate your narrative in the request detail section. We also will fund some or none of the requests that you have based on our panelists' feedback and also the requirements. One of the things that I know Dennis is going to touch on a lot is about getting buy-in. If you're thinking about applying under hiring, please start now. The problem we're having is that some fire departments did not have a conversation with their local city officials or government, and we offer them the grant and they can't accept it. Now, we turn around and offer it to somebody else, but it is a real struggle in order to have the timing where we can notify and make awards and give you the time you need to work out the differences. But we are willing to work with you. We'll help you as best we can through that process if you find that you get into that pickle during your award cycle. Eligible applicants for SAFER, career departments on the hiring activity, combination departments, and again, volunteer fire departments have a set aside for transitioning into a combination department. In the recruitment and retention, it is volunteer departments, combination departments, and local, state, and local interest groups are eligible to apply. The Fire Prevention and Safety is an interesting program. It has $35 million, but it has a lot of different activities within it. It's not just prevention, it also has a firefighter safety component. If you're familiar with the Near Miss project, they were in the exhibit hall. That was funded through the Fire Prevention and Safety grants, and also the Wellness and Fitness Initiative from the IAFF is also funded through here. We have research and development under here that we've been meeting with our grantees the last 2 days downstairs. There's some phenomenal activity going on in terms of research for firefighter safety. If you're interested in what's coming down the pike in terms of new technology or clinical and behavioral changes or studies, we can send you the information from their presentations so that you can become familiar with it. And we are working on putting the abstracts of those studies on our website. Eligible applicants is a little bit different with prevention. You can have anybody from a local fire department to a local interest group or even universities. So it runs the gamut of really the only people not eligible for fire prevention and safety is a for-profit or a federal agency. We have the general education where you can do smoke alarm projects, installation projects. You can get public education materials to deliver to your communities. I know that we have funded some national organizations to develop information that you can actually download and use without having to create your own materials, including home inspection checklists so that you can just print them off, take them with you, and do the installations and home inspections as you cruise through your neighborhoods. We do code enforcement, including you can buy tools. We get a lot of requests for pre-planning software and PDAs to conduct that activity, and fire and arson, including juvenile fire setter programs that you want to stand up or supplement in your communities. The national, state, regional programs or studies, again, that can be anything from firefighter safety to doing a national study on the effectiveness of prevention programs, or developing tools for you to take out in the community that have been tested and validated. So going back to some of the changes that we've made, we have elevated the role of outreach within our office. Before, we've been working on a whole bunch of giving out the money and not so much about telling you what we're doing, or giving you more tools to work through the application process or even understand the process. So we did do a webinar for SAFER grantees. We are moving forward with additional ideas on future webinars, so please watch our website for additional information and tools. We're doing a video series these are targeted small informations on how to follow the procurement policy, how to report, how to do a closeout. The Get Ready guides, really like to hear if there's information that you would have liked to see in the Get Ready guides or in the self-evaluation tool. One of our other big challenge is feedback on unsuccessful grants. And I hear it all the time about it's a form letter. Truly, it has some form mechanism because we're giving 10,000 people feedback. So we can't tell you with a blow-by-blow, this is what the panelists said. But we are looking at their scores to a level of detail to say, if there was one thing that you did wrong or two things that you did wrong, here's the things they were. We also thought it was important this past go-around to tell you where you were on the scale. So if you were on the lower end, you pretty much want to focus on all your activities. If you're on the higher end of the scale, then you're just tweaking your narrative and focus on the one or two items. So I don't know that we'll get to the place where we're going to be able to give you each 10,000 department or 15,000 departments individual feedback, but you can call the office, you can call the help desk, you can call your regional offices, and they can help you as best you can in understanding what that letter was, and if there's any other information they can provide you. Here's where all our tools are located: the program guidance, the applicant tutorial. We have our help desk is manned with firefighters. On their off-duty days, they come in so that you don't have to explain to them what a hose is when you want to talk about what the equipment you want to purchase, so you can have some frank and good conversations with them. This is also the place I want you to send us any feedback to this email address or from this website, because I really do want to hear the parts that are confusing, the parts that are frustrating with your program, because we are looking at all aspects of this. There's nothing that's not on the table in terms of change. As long as we can bend the policies of what we're working with, but we won't bend the law, obviously, but if we can explain that better if it's a statutory issue versus just an internal policy. So please send me the feedback. I wanted to talk to you a little bit before I end on some of the things that we see that are concerning within our office and your applications. The biggest thing I'd want to talk to you about is thinking in terms of our program and how we best support it to the other folks within DC, in supporting the fact that continuing this program and moving it forward. So think about getting back to the basics on what is actually truly needed in your departments, and focusing only on the need of these programs versus sometimes the nice to haves. The pre-scoring that we're doing this year will help with that focus. But we really do need to be able to provide and stand up to Congress and whoever else within the federal government to say, this program is making the difference because you now have a fire truck. And that there's not a perception by individuals to say they're just getting stuff. So we want to make sure that we can support it. And what we need from you, what we truly need from you, is your success stories from the grantees on anything that happened that made a difference with this grant in your world, in your communities. So please share that information with us. I wanted to talk a little bit about grant writers. There are good grant writers and there are bad grant writers. I want to give you a word of caution that you have to choose your grant writers wisely. They can prepare your application for you, but you must review it before it's submitted. We've had some incidences, unfortunately, where information was incorrect when it was submitted and the grant writer's name was nowhere on the application, only the chiefs and only the other people within the department. And guess who we're looking at for why is this, is it fraud or was it a mistake? So you have to make sure that you know and can validate the information that's submitted on your application. There are a lot of small errors that are made within the submittal process that I want you to think about before you click that submit button. We see an unfortunate amount of place narrative here typed into the narrative boxes, or you weren't sure the number, so you put 99999, and it doesn't add up in terms of the panelists being able to review it. So please take your time in filling it out, review it carefully before you click submit, make sure everything is filled out, because once it's submitted and once we go to panels, if your narrative's not there, it's just not there. We have nothing to evaluate. It's an unfortunate reality. It happens actually quite frequently. One of the other areas that I want you to pay careful attention to is the interpretation of the question within the application that talks about your percentage of compliance. The question says, what percentage of your current firefighters are compliant with NFPA and OSHA? So if that number is 50%, the next question, you can type in 50%. Your next question says, after this grant award, what percentage of your firefighters are going to be compliant with NFPA and OSHA? That number should not decline. Should not. So please don't misinterpret what that question is. Very important. And the key hint to that is if you look in the program guidance, those applications that are increasing their compliance score better than those who do not. I think that's all I had for today, but we can take questions as we go through. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy. I just want to take the time not only to thank you for being here with us, but also for bringing the research program to our conference this week and allowing our members to take part in that. We are very appreciative of everything that you're doing within your office. Your staff is truly some of the hardest working in the federal government, and we're tremendously grateful for everything you're doing for the fire service. So thank you so much. One thing I was just kind of jotting notes down as Kathy was talking, she talked about the high number of grants that are either being turned back or have problems. That's an area where over the past couple of years, the IFF has spent a significant amount of time trying to assist our locals on the front end of the grant and making sure that you're able to, the city is, you as the local are comfortable with, the fire chief, the fire department are comfortable with, and the city is comfortable with not only accepting the grants if they're awarded, but also keeping them going successfully during the period of performance. We know a lot of times the problems that you face on the front end are political, they're budgetary, they're contract and collective bargaining issues. So we kind of try and help bridge the gap between some of those issues so that you can be successful in your grants. We work with probably 50% city managers, fire chiefs, and 50% local presidents, and by the end of the process, it's 100% involvement by both sides. So we try to make sure that we fix as much on the front end so that you don't get into trouble on the back end. So myself, Dennis, Ron from my office are here to help you guys as you put your grants together. The Fire Act grants are very unique in the federal government, I think, because they allow for such a high degree of input from the industry that it serves, the fire service. The IFF is involved on multiple levels with these grants. In the beginning, as the grant guidance is developed with FEMA, we meet with Kathy and her staff multiple times a year, as does a number of the national fire service groups. And then finally, we submit the names of IFF members each year to sit on review panels for FEMA so that we have members who are reading and taking a look at these grants as they come in. Dennis Yulberg is one of the IFF members who has sat on these panels for us for a number of years. He's a lieutenant with the North Metro Fire District out of Denver, Colorado. He's also a PEP instructor, and for the past 2 years has been helping me and my department and reaching out and helping you folks. And he brings unique perspective because of his years as a reviewer on these panels. He's seen all of the types of grants that go through the Fire Act office. So we're lucky to have him here. Dennis?
Okay, well, some of this will be a review and some of it will be dovetailing into what Kathy has already mentioned, is what we've seen kind of over the number of years. This was a good quote we borrowed from Director Alba back in September of 2001. And we've seen a lot of dramatic changes in our industry, in the cities, the municipalities we work for, of where the funding is going. And back then, as early as 2001, they realized the need for essential equipment, personal protective gear, and personnel so that we can do the job, and our industry is being taxed even more so now. So the competitiveness for these grants is only going to increase. So the better we can make these documents before you send them in, utilize your resources either through the FEMA folks or us at the International, and we can really hopefully make a difference in your organization. So of you in the audience, how many of you have some type of experience with the grants? Okay, a couple, good. The thing to hopefully you take away from here today, it's not as scary as you think. There is a certain amount of brain damage involved, but after you do the first one, the damage is greatly reduced because a lot of the information you can use in successive years because you've developed your department history and you've used some of the different data and those kind of things. So if you have applied, good. Use that as a working tool, a working document to develop, to hone, to move forward into the next area. They are also documents that we can offer suggestions on if you get it to us. If you have received a grant, you know that it's like winning the lottery. You're getting something for 10, 20 cents on the dollar for whatever the match is. But that's only the beginning of a lot of work. Your work might be in the development and the submission of the grant, but once it gets awarded, that work is going to be onto your entire organization in the finance department for the tracking, for the bid process, and all the documentation that goes throughout the lifetime or of that grant award period. So you could be bringing a lot of work into other people. So this is kind of an ambitious event to undertake these grants. So hopefully it turns out a little bit better than in this situation here. It brings some inherent challenges. Number one, in completing the application, look at your time frames. This time, the application window opened on the 15th of August, and it needs to be hit that send button by 5 p.m. on the 9th of September. You don't want to be there adding your changes, your final revisions at 4:30 on that day. Oh, and by the way, that's East Coast time. You don't want to be caught thinking, oh, I still got an hour. Sorry, that's East Coast time. Work your schedule back. You need to be ready to submit your completed final application by Monday or Tuesday of that final week, just so there's no little internet glitch, no log jam. It all gets back there. The next day, you get the email that says, hey, we received your grant. Breathe that heavy sigh, and you can move on. Is this something you're doing while still online? Are you being pulled offline to do it? Is it a collateral duty assignment? Factor all these things into your time commitments and completing the application. Additional time constraints. If this has to be approved through the people that hold the purse strings, then plan ahead, way ahead, like 6 months ahead. Get a hold of council, get on the agenda, because it probably has to go through a first reading. And then next month it'll go through a second reading. The third month, finally they'll take a vote on it. You can't do this in 30 days when that application window opens. You may not be able to collect all the data you need from finance to your call volume and those other topics in that short a time period as well. So understand the time constraints that are going to go with it. The various budget concerns. It's not free money. There is going to be some component that your organization is going to have to pay. If it's a matching, if it's an 80-20 match for apparatus or equipment, if it's related to SAFER, they may pick up the cost for the first 2 years, but how are you going to fund these people after that period? So look at the budget concerns, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the financial information as well. Purchasing concerns, there's a very detailed process of how this needs to be done. It's in your program guide. I will repeat it many times, but you need to read that program guide at least 3 to 4 times. If you're an all-career organization, any reference to combination or volunteer, take your black marker and just X it out. Whatever your program you're requesting, highlight it one color. The next time when you read it 2 days later, read and highlight in a second color, so you completely understand where your program is going to be in the guide and what type of purchasing concerns go with that. Administrative concerns. Again, you need to have the buy-in from the players. When we review it, I want to see that council is backing this. The mayor supports this program. They have endorsed the funding for this program. This lets us know it's not just something that the fire chief dreamt up one night. Everybody is on board with it. All the players are involved. As you organize your document, get your narrative done, and it needs to be a good narrative. Tell us what your problem is. If it was a needs assessment that was done, who did it? Who authorized it? Well, we grabbed Bob because he was on injured reserve, and we said, Bob, sit down and tell us what we really need in this department. This may not hold the same credibility as this is a needs assessment done by staff, and it has been approved by City Council and the Mayor. These are the items that we need to address the problems that we have found. So let us know on that. Hopefully it doesn't look like a Dear Santa Claus wish list, and we've read these applications that do. It looks like they flipped through a catalog, and we want 2 of these, 1 of these. Oh, this is really neat. We should get 1 of these for each one of the trucks. That's not what the program's for. That you've addressed your organization. What are your needs? How is this program going to fill the voids that you have? You need to find the middle ground between a detailed project description and something that just goes on and on and on. Remember, the Reader's Digest version is a better deal. We're reading somewhere between 40 to 60 applications every day for 5 days. Your application needs to be solid, concise, so that it's just as good if we read it on Monday morning at 9 o'clock or Thursday afternoon at 5:30. Okay, if you can say it in 3 paragraphs compared to 8, that's better. So revision, revision, revision is kind of one of the keys here. Know if your project is even fundable. Where does it rank in the priority boxes? It's wonderful that they're changing it and putting it in graphics now. So you can look at it, and if the chief wants you to go for hose replacement, you can show him, look, chief, it's a priority 3 item. I'll work on this application, but understand, here's the priority 1 items, here's the priority 2, here's where ours fits. You'll know that going in, where did it fit into the priorities. If your project is impacted by any mutual aid agreements that you have, if you're asking for a piece of apparatus, is that a crucial part of your mutual aid agreements? Is that aerial apparatus going to be used by other agencies? What is the impact that taking this unit out of service with the loss of staffing, what did that have on your other mutual aid companies? Do you have data to back that up? If you can show in your narrative that you missed 142 calls last month with that apparatus being out of service, put it in there. That's good information. That's a way we can see exactly the impact of what your project is looking at. The cost benefit. What is this going to do for daily operations? Is it just, hey, it's another bright, shiny piece of equipment we're going to drive up and down the street for the parade every year? What's its utilization? What's the impact it's going to be to the firefighters? And the end result, how is this going to help the general public? What is this going to do for your service delivery? Remember, read one application, they wanted a new ambulance unit. Their newest ambulance unit had 384,000 miles on it. They drove 62 miles one way to the hospital. I don't know how many of you are paramedics, but that's a little bit outside the comfort zone in my world, to put a patient in that and go that far one way in that type of apparatus. Those are important things to put in there if you're looking for apparatus. How old is the bunker gear you're looking to replace? That's going to be part of the electronic scoring. If you don't fill in those data fields, you're going to get kicked out. We're never going to see it at the peer review. So you have to have that information in there. Your actual call volumes. Look at those numbers. A lot of it relates to how you do your accounting and your calls and your record keeping. But if you've had the exact same number of structure fires for the last 3 years, it could happen. But that's something we're going to kind of highlight with a little flag and say, wow, they've had 485 fires every year and no false alarms. Could be a data issue. And then that almost leads to second guessing the other figures and data within the application. So look at your numbers real close on that. Your department history, and this is part of the statement of effect as well. What's the infrastructure you're covering? Highways, roads, airports, hospital, colleges. You provide mutual aid, put in parentheses what the population of that city is. Reviewers will not review applications from their home state. So for you to say you cover I-14, that really doesn't mean anything to me. You cover mutual aid into Clinton Township. Okay, good. But if you have a parentheses, that's a township of 380,000 people, that carries a big impact. Then we know that this is a bigger impact if it adversely affects your mutual aid responses. So that's information to include in your department history, your organizational history. If you have put in applications before, again, feel free to send that to us. We'll look at it. We'll see for content what's there, what maybe can be adjusted, what maybe is lacking on it. With the financial information, we'd really like to see, why can't you afford this? Don't tell me the country's economy is bad. We get it. What's the unemployment rate in your area? If 14% is bad in your area, or if 3% is bad in your area, put it in there. What other funding mechanisms have you sought? We tried to do a voter initiative for a tax increase. It was voted down. We applied for a state grant. We didn't get it. This tells us that you're looking for other funding sources to help solve your problem that your needs assessment addressed. What's your sustainability? If we give you this apparatus, you're requesting everything from the wheel chocks, the hose, pike poles, everything all the way up, what's your sustainability? Are you gonna be able to keep it with fuel? Are you gonna be able to change the oil, new tires once in a while? I mean, what's your funding program? And again, this is where if you have that buy-in from the key players, city council, the mayor, these people are committed to service levels or not reducing staff or keeping this apparatus in service, put it in there. It just validates your statements even more from that funding standpoint. If you have local impacts or state laws or regulations that affect your ability to generate revenue, put it in there. I'm not familiar with all the tax laws across the country. In Colorado, we have the Tabor Amendment, which killed us through the 90s. I wouldn't expect somebody from Alabama to understand our Tabor laws, so in my application, I better at least explain it a little bit. Anything that has to do with tax incremental funding that the cities put out there to bring development in. Many times fire districts and things are cut out of that funding window. Include that information as well. That's an adverse impact to your financial budget that creates problems for you. Be sure it's easy to read. When you write your document and you put it in the application, it's going to compress all your information. It's going to take out every spacing of lines. It's going to adjust everything to the left. If you don't go back in there and readjust it, it's very, very difficult for us to read that. That continuous text is very hard to read. Review your document. Have fresh eyes look at it once in a while. If you're the person that's put 6 months into this and you're getting ready to submit it, have somebody else look at it that hasn't lost the brain cells on it. If they understand the same acronyms you're using or different things like that, be sure it's been reviewed. Run it past the people in power. Make sure they approve it. If you're saying this will bring us up in compliance with 1710 and your chief has acknowledged the 1710 guidelines, those are two entirely different statements. So be sure you're not using words that your administration or the city or somebody is not comfortable with. Make sure they approve it. So you got to sell it to the people with the money. They have to see the value in it. You have the alternatives. Many of them want it to be their idea. Ultimately, do you care? You're getting an apparatus. You're getting more firefighters on the job. I don't care whose idea it is. Bottom line is you're getting it at a reduced cost, and hopefully it's going to enhance your customer service and your service delivery. It brings some inherent problems, though. Many times you have labor management issues. Administration doesn't want the local being involved in it. They don't want to share all the financial numbers with you. Maybe negotiations is coming up and they don't want to show you what the last 3 years' budgets are. So you're only working with part of the pieces of the application. So it can be some challenges there. We've had times where organizations put in the application, they might get awarded, and Kathy can tell you, then something's changed in the city and they no longer have the matching funds. They can't come up with the money. Thanks for the grant, but we got to give it back to you. We don't have our 10%. We can't guarantee that we can do this project. So work on your projects anyway. Use this document as a worksheet, maybe in preparation for next year's program. Do your budget research. If the chief says, hey, look, we can do this, but you got to look at the budget. You got to tell me where you can find this money. Boy, start digging. Maybe you can have a good chance at finding some money to fund it. And again, review that guidance. That program guide is the way to do this. If your item is a priority 1, then I should see that in your narrative as well. This tells me you've read the program guide, you recognize that your project is a priority 1 item, and you're just reinforcing that to me. If you're meeting an NFPA standard, don't write out the standard, please. We get it. I know what 1710 is. If you're going to meet 1720, I know that deals with volunteer side. Don't rewrite those things. Don't rewrite something that is directly out of a sales brochure. Last year you got bunker gear from AFG. This year you want an extractor. And you know what? This narrative looks just like a brochure from an extractor company. If you cut and paste and borrow narratives, you're going to get flagged. We'll pick it up. If we're reading 40 to 60 of these a day, and it's like, I've seen that word, but you know, it was with this department over here, this city. Don't cut and paste them. If people you want to look at and they want to offer suggestions, that's fine. Don't completely pirate their language. Work with your politicians. If you do get a grant, talk to them. Thank them for their support. Thank them for voting for this on Capitol Hill. Ultimately, remember, every nickel that's spent in the fire service is approved by an elected official at some level of government. We have to have them involved. Let them know when things work. Let them know when things don't work. If you get rejected, hey, you tried. Still get it to us anyway. We'll look at it. Get information to Kathy, the help desk. We'll see what happened. We'll try and get that information back to you as much as we can. So again, we look at some of the top 10 mistakes that we've seen. The labor management issues sometimes can be a real big problem. Work on that as part of the early process of the grant writing. Remember your time constraints. Basically, your application window, under my suggestions, is 3 weeks. That last week is just final little adjustments and the last few couple reviews, and you're ready to hit the send button. The real work is the 42 weeks before that you're putting into it. Always back up your work, keep it on thumb drive, so if your system crashes or something, everything isn't lost. Getting those statements of commitment from the people that control the purse strings. This is huge. This relates back to that sustainability of your project. Revise, review, have fresh eyes look at it. Somebody outside the fire department maybe. Pick somebody in one of the other city departments. Go talk to the English teacher at the local high school. Say, hey, how does this look to you? Is this a good readable document? Remember your audience. If you're from a full career department, you're going to have professionals reading your document. If you're from a combination department, you could have anybody from any of the 9 agencies that they pull reviewers from reading your document. So know your audience. Know who's reading that. Avoid the drama, okay? Don't put in there, well, if we get this, we'll save lives. Really? Good for you. Hopefully you're saving lives anyway. I get it. But if there was an actual event that occurred because truck 712 was shut down last year and you're trying to get it put back in service, something happened on that section of highway and it took an additional 20 minutes to get a rig in there, put that in there. I want to see that. That's an impact on daily operations. If you've got your run data to back that up, call times increased. Station 2 had to run into 3's area for ladder assists, or keep those things in there. But know your audience. That's going to give the validity to your application as well. Remember your language. In the back of the program guide is the glossary. So if you're saying pumper, it's on the same line, pumper, engine, those are all equal. Truck, aerial, ladder, there might be some delineation there. Be sure you're using the proper terminology. Ambulance, medic unit, those type of reflections. How's this going to impact the public? Who's this going to help? Back it up with data, your call volume. It's going to reduce your response times. You know this nursing home generates 400 calls a month. With this medic unit being out of service, somebody's going to have to answer those calls and our response times are going to go up. That impact to the public. Remember, do your proofreading, your grammar checks on your working document before you load it into the application. If you don't read the program guide, you're going to be going down the wrong road. You need to understand the questions and understand what they're asking. As Kathy said, if some of those numbers don't increase, then you've done something wrong. If your staffing is 168 people and you're asking for 20 people with this SAFER grant, after the grant, you should have more than that online. Unless your numbers are going to be even, then you better say in your narrative, we have these number of people, we've got 23 people that are going to retire. So this is just bringing us back to even ground. Then explain it. If your numbers don't shift, it needs to be in a narrative form what's going on. Biggest mistake is not applying. Things don't fall out of the sky. We need the help. That initial quote said we need the equipment, the apparatus, and the staffing to do the job, to be safe, to provide for the public. So you got to apply. Again, wonderful things if you have all the vision, determination, and endless supply of expendable labor, you can achieve anything you want. Show me the money. This is what you want to tell your board of directors. We got a way of getting something for less than 100% of the cost. Let's get involved, participate in it, expend that brain damage. We're here to help you. You don't have to go through this alone. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. We'll be around for a couple minutes afterwards if you guys want to come up with individual questions. Otherwise, as Dennis said, we're here to help you. Kathy's staff's here to help you through the process. So reach out to us, let us know what you need. Thanks.